What we have here is proof that manufacturers on occasion really do listen to feedback. Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name is Mojaxx, and in this episode we look at the DDJ-GRV6, AlphaTheta's new mid-range controller, which is somewhat more pro than its predecessor. The DDJ Flex 6 and Flex 6 GT were certainly not bad devices, but they had three main areas in which I found them to be less than stellar. The first was that I found the included special features, the merge effects and the jog cutter, to be rather gimmicky and not really that useful. The second was the lack of any kind of balanced output, which I deemed to be essential for any controller which might be used outside of the bedroom. And thirdly, despite being touted as controllers for both Serato and Rekordbox, the Serato integration was poorly executed, especially in the effects department. Thankfully, I can tell you straight off the bat that the AlphaTheta DDJ-GRV6 has none of these problems. It's still aimed at the same kind of market, which I see as hobbyists with deep pockets, or perhaps as a first upgrade for somebody who started out on a basic beginner controller and now wants more functionality. It is priced accordingly, with a street price of around $830 in the US. That's a little more than the Flex 6 GT, but that was launched in 2022, so when taking inflation and the extra features of the GRV6 into account, I have no complaints about the cost. Most of this video will be taken up by demos with Serato and Rekordbox, so let's get the basics out of the way as quickly as possible. The GRV6 is a 4-deck controller for those two platforms, as well as Rekordbox on iOS and Android, but only with 2 decks on there. I assume it will also be mapped for Algorithm's DJ Pro and Virtual DJ pretty quickly. One side note, at no point with any of their devices have AlphaTheta given me access to a beta of iOS Rekordbox to test their kit with. I feel like that needs to change, as it might work incredibly on here, or it might be terrible, but right now there's no way I can tell you. Construction is very decent for the money. Yeah, it's basically all plastic, but that's to be expected at this price point, and there were no areas of concern during my testing. As with the Flex 6, it has a matte finish, which does show up greasy finger marks like crazy, but it looks great when it's clean. It definitely doesn't share the same quality of digital to analog conversion as higher end gear from the same stable, but having run it through a few different setups, I can say that if you walk into an average plug and play bar gig and hook it up, nobody will be complaining. Doing that with the GRV6 will be much easier than it was with the Flex 6, as here we do have some balanced outputs. If you're not aware, balanced audio uses 3 conductors to carry the audio signal with a separate ground, so you are less likely to suffer from interference, especially over longer distances. So if you're plugging into the house system at a venue, or even just some powered speakers more than a few feet away, balanced is generally a much better option than an unbalanced connection. There are 2 commonly used balanced connectors, XLRs and jacks. On the GRV6 we only have jacks, not XLRs, but balanced jack to XLR cables are easy and cheap to source. For me, this is a serious upgrade over the Flex 6. As for the rest of the connectivity, things remain pretty simple. Aside from the balanced master output, there's also unbalanced RCAs for that, as well as a second pair for a booth output with its own level control. There are no analog inputs aside from the microphone, which has a balanced jack socket, an attenuator knob on the rear and a volume knob on the front. Like the sound overall, this didn't blow me away in quality terms, but is perfectly serviceable, and I do like that by default the mic is now routed to the USB record output where it wasn't on the Flex 6, which potentially makes using the GRV6 for live streaming much more straightforward. There is no second USB port for easy DJ switchovers, which is fine at this price, and I do like that this company are continuing their move to USB-C everywhere. Here we have 2 USB-C sockets, one for power and one for connecting to your computer or mobile device. I found that the GRV6 runs perfectly off USB bus power with a computer, but the pass-through wasn't sufficient to charge my 16-inch MacBook Pro. I assume it will power an iPad or iPhone just fine, but as I say, I didn't have the software to test that with properly. Right, I'm going to talk you through the functionality with Serato DJ Pro. We'll try and make it quick because we've got 2 platforms to get through. Start with the deck sections. Obviously we've got the traditional Pioneer DJ AlphaTheta cue and play pause buttons. That familiar position. Feel great. Very responsive. The jog wheels I do love. I think they're great. They've got, like the Flex 6 before, they've got this slightly looser feel than some CDJ jogs. You know, some people like to dial up the tension on their CDJ jogs, but these aren't like super loose. But they're very responsive, very easy to use. They are capacitive jogs, not mechanical jogs, so they don't physically push down. They've got the capacitive surface, but that feels good. Got the indentations for pitch bending on the side. Honestly, I've got no argument with these jogs really, whatsoever. They feel great. So if you play hip hop and stuff like that and you want to do a bit of cutting and what have you, yeah, it works great. Pitch slider, not the longest thing in the world, but you can easily dial into a 1/10 of a BPM or whatever, no problem. Beat sync and key sync, master tempo buttons there. Moving up, we've got the slip mode, quantize on or off. Obviously we have the deck selection, so it can go between 1 and 3. On this side, 2 and 4 on the right hand side. Then we get up to our looping controls. We've got the traditional CDJ style in, out, and reloop/exit button. You can also hold it down for a 4-beat loop. And we can use these cool buttons over here, which are not, you know, these are for the memory points in Rekordbox, but we can halve or double the loop with those. And again, exit out. So yeah, I'm happy with the looping, no issues there. We have different pad modes. So the pads up here, we've got our hot cues. We have got all 8 of them. Now they are just blue pads, you know, blue LEDs in these. But for a home-oriented device, I really don't think that's an issue. It can get a little bit confusing sometimes because when you switch between modes, obviously they just look kind of the same. So it does demand a bit more attention, but honestly, yeah, it's fine for what this is, a mid-range controller. And they are positioned just like the ones, you know, on the DDJ-3000. So if you're kind of wanting to get used to that pro feel, then it makes sense for them to be up here. They're not pads, they are clicky buttons like the play, pause and cue. It's that kind of feel. We've got hot cue mode. Then we can hold shift and go into keyboard mode. It's actually pitch play mode in Serato. Then we've got stems. There's obviously nothing going on in the stems there, but yeah, so there's your drums, bass, melody, and vocals. And then we have the stems FX over here. So we can echo out the instrumental, echo out the vocal, break the instrumental. So we have those standard Serato DJ Pro stems controls. Then we have pad effects, which I just wish Serato would just put into all of their stuff. Like, I don't know why it's not a default thing in Serato to have a pad effects mode, because it rocks. Obviously it's traditionally like a Rekordbox thing, but it rocks here, it absolutely rules. I want that in just Serato in general. That is just awesome. Like, why isn't that just a software feature? But anyway, yeah, so that's great, love it. Beat jump, go and change the jump value and then jump back and forth. Hold shift, it's beat loop. There you've got your beat jump on the right hand side. Let's come out of that loop. And then we've got sampler, I don't have anything in the sampler. And then we've got key shift, which rather than pitch play, it doesn't jump to the cue, it just goes back up and down. Always shows you the original root key there so you can see what you do. And that's pretty much your deck section, right? Very simple, but it's all there, all the features I want. It's got the stems controls, it's got the beat jump, and it's got those awesome pad effects. Fantastic. We'll come up to the groove circuit with Serato in a minute, we'll get there soon. Browsing, you've got this thing which is like, it's a little bit less useful in Serato because in Rekordbox it like jumps right to the end of a list and stuff when you use it as a joystick. In this it doesn't, it will go left and right. And then you've got your load buttons, and obviously it scrolls as well. You've got your load buttons for each deck. You can change your view and all that kind of stuff as well, add stuff to the prepare crate, etc. So that's all fine there. Come down now to the mixer section. The crossfader, it's definitely better out of the box than the Flex 6 was when it comes to the cut-in distance in Serato. I believe you can go into the settings on the hardware, you know, when you boot it up and you go through the different lights and stuff. I think you can tighten that a little bit further still, but the actual cut itself is good on here. It's better than it was on the Flex 6, as far as I'm concerned. Up faders, all, you know, fairly short, but nice and smooth. The faders on here, this is not a turntablist weapon. You're not expecting, you know, magnetic crossfader and stuff like that for this kind of price, and it all works just fine. Then we have the Q buttons for each channel. And then we have also stem ISO, so it'll do the stem EQ for you as well. So we hold shift, and now it's doing the stems. And with Serato, it turns the 4 stems into 3, so you've got drums, melody and bass, and then vocal on there. So if you prefer to work with your stems in an EQ way, then you can absolutely do that here. Then we have the sound color effects, which are new in Serato. They've now got the ability in the latest versions of Serato to choose what you have. So we've got filter by default, turn it on. But we can also hold shift and choose dub echo. Hold shift, press it again. We've got reverb. And again. And we've got the white noise. So that is way better than it used to be. The only thing that annoys me about this is when it's deactivated, the light is on, and when it's active, the light is flashing at you. I would much prefer that that was just off and then on when it's on, rather than ever flashing at me. I don't know why it needs to flash at me. I just find it distracting. It's just flashing for no reason at all. But yeah, all good there. One thing I didn't mention about the crossfader, as with the Flex 6, and I think this might just be a restriction in Serato because it's all software mixing here. This is all being done in the software. There's no hardware mixing going on. 1 and 3 are always assigned to the left-hand side of the crossfader, and 2 and 4 are always assigned to the right-hand side of the crossfader. There's no way to change that in Serato DJ Pro. In Rekordbox you can, because you can assign the mixer channels, but there's no way to do that in Serato. So just be aware that if you are a crossfader user, if you've got something playing on, you know, channel 4, and you want to come in on channel 2 and scratch, well, you're going to be cutting off channel 4 as well. So just bear that in mind. What I will say is, if we go back to the dub echo, turn it on. That is post fader and post crossfader, so that's cool. I like that. When you don't have stem EQ active, we've got regular EQs, and again, this is Serato software mixing. All good there. You've got your trim control up above. Now we move on to the effects, and the effects, the main effects, the beat effects, were my biggest issue with the Flex 6 in Serato in particular. It wasn't good, right? It was really complicated. They were just kind of laid on top of, well, they were utilizing the standard effects in Serato DJ Pro now. Firstly, Serato DJ Pro's effects in general have got way better recently. The new version is so superior to the old one. But this doesn't actually use those. Like, I'm going to use these beat effects now, right? Let me put this just to a delay, for an echo first of all, right? I'm going to assign it to channel 1. I'm going to turn it on. It's post fader, post crossfader. So that's great. But you'll notice, looking on the Serato DJ Pro screen, nothing's activated in the Serato DJ Pro effects. These are software effects. Serato is doing this, but it's not utilizing the main effects banks in Serato DJ Pro. So firstly, it works better because they're not trying to map this set of controls to the standard Serato DJ Pro controls. But also, it does mean if you had like an extra MIDI controller or something, you can actually use Serato's effects on top of these effects as well. So that's a nice little bonus. Not something I think most people will do, but it's just nice to know. But look, so we'll go through, so we've got the echo there. Low cut echo, which is my favorite effect. Spiral. Helix, reverb, flanger, phaser, filter, transform, pitch, roll, and the Mobius effects, which I always love. But you'll notice that it's just doing what it says, right? I'm adjusting the beat value there. You can see the beat value on that little display, and I'm changing the effect to what it says it is, and I press the button and the effect works. And that is not how it was on the Flex 6 and the Flex 6 GT. It just wasn't how things worked. It was really unintuitive. This, it does what it says on the tin, and that's what I want from a device, right? It does what it says it's going to do. So I love it, and the fact that you can use the Serato internal software effects on the screen as well is just like an extra bonus. So yeah, overall, really happy with the effects. Now let's move up to the groove circuit. Does very different things. It comes with 2 of these overlays which you can stick on. I haven't taken off the adhesive backing. I'm just going to throw one on loosely, so it's not actually stuck on there because this is a review unit. But here now we can see we've got different labeling. We have Stems FX. So first of all, we can choose the effect that we want. So we've got echo out, roll out, breaker, and delay. I've just got echo out. So you hold shift to choose that. Then I'm going to choose which stems I want to do that effect to. So I'm going to do it to the drums. In fact, I'm going to do it to the bass, right? So it's echo out this bass, right? Ready? 1, 2, 3. The bass echoes out. Drums. Echo out. Tell me how do I feel? Vocal echoes out. We can do roll out instead. Let's choose roll out. Or breaker. Let's do breaker on the drums. So it's cool. Like, it's really very cool. We can also change the duration of that. So by default it's 1 beat. We can change it to a half beat. Let's put it back to echo out. And we'll do the drums again. So now it's a half beat echo on the drums. And then we can roll as well. So we can roll that stem. I can roll the vocal. And you can do multiples at the same time. We can do melody and bass, or vocal and bass. And that is just fun, right? That is a fun feature. Easy to use, easy to remember how it works. You know, I will normally leave it on like the echo out. And then you can just assign on the fly, you can do multiples at once. I think it's great, I really do. We can also hold shift and we can make it latching, so we don't have to hold the button down. So I will show you the actual groove circuit in Rekordbox shortly, and there's a lot to love about that. But I think for me, yeah, this is probably my favourite of the 2. The Stems FX is very accomplished. Very good indeed. So there you go, Serato DJ Pro with the Groove 6. Definitely worlds apart from how it was on the Flex 6 and the Flex 6 GT. And for me, yeah, a very accomplished Serato DJ Pro controller indeed. Before we get into the Rekordbox demo, some notes on the software. I won't mince my words, the quality of stems in Rekordbox until now has been trash. Fully Stems 1.0 quality, which everyone else has long moved on from. In the new version that ships with the Groove 6 though, we finally see some improvement. There's a new option in the settings to choose higher quality, and they do indeed sound better than before. Still not up there with the best from Algorithm, Virtual DJ or Serato, but far superior to the last version. There are some caveats though. They are very demanding demanding on your computer and they take a long time to analyze on the fly, plus there's still no option to pre-analyze them ahead of time. And then I want to touch on Rekordbox 7 in general. I did a first look at it when it launched, but that was really just messing around on my computer, and having spent more time with it in performance mode for this review, my conclusion is that it is a mess. It has loads of cool features, but if you actually utilize them all, then your screen is a confusing mass of tiny interface elements. And even in export mode, the new library layout isn't comfortable for me, and it still shows 2 progress bars for the 2 types of device libraries when you export. Aside from the stems, which do still need work, I actually think the underlying functionality of Rekordbox 7 is great, but what I'd really like to see from Rekordbox 8 is a complete overhaul when it comes to the GUI. At this point, I don't really see how else they could fix it. But all that said, if you are a Rekordbox user already, then the GRV6, as you're about to see, works with it very nicely. Right, we're going to run you through Rekordbox. Now, obviously, a lot of this is very, very similar, but there are some differences. So the deck sections, yeah, all the same there. Jog wheels feel just as responsive. Got your pitch slider, all that kind of stuff there. But we'll move on up. Obviously, the looping controls work the same way. You can hold down and get the 4-beat loop. You can re-loop exit. You've got your memory cues there, but when you're in a loop, you can halve or double it. That's just like on CDJs. All these other controls down here work basically the same. Again, you've got 4 decks there. Moving on up to the pad modes, again, very similar. Hot cue, keyboard mode, so hold shift and keyboard mode. Then we got stems. Now, this is where stems is interesting. I've talked about the stem quality here. They are definitely better than they were before. They're still not the greatest. But they are definitely better. And there's something else with the stems I'll show you in a minute, but we'll get to that. Pad effects. Always great, good fun, like those. Beat jump. And you can see on the screen where your beat jump values are. Hold shift, beat loop. And then we got sampler and key shift. So by and large, that all kind of works roughly as it did in Serato DJ Pro. Pretty similar stuff. We move over to the mixer section, and of course we've got the sound color effects working the same kind of way. So we've got the filter. But in Rekordbox, you've actually got a choice of way more. So if I hold shift and I can go through, we've got jet, crush, noise, pitch, space, dub echo, sweep, and gate compressor. So loads of choices there. Again, it's on when it's off and it flashes when it's on, and that annoys me in both platforms. But it works well enough. Obviously you've got your regular EQ and stem ISO EQ as well. So again, hold shift, hit the Q button. And you can hear these stems they're definitely better. They're still not the best, but they're better. Compared to the first gen of Rekordbox stems, that is like streets ahead. Turn that off so I know where I am. Now the effects, they work in a similar way to the way they do on Serato. They are utilizing the software effects. In Rekordbox, they're actually controlling the first slot on the left-hand side. Again, post-fader, post-crossfader. And again, they just kind of do what they say on the tin. you know, delay, echo, low cut echo, spiral, reverb. And the beat value thing does the beat value thing. And again, I've got no argument with this at all. You can still do more with the software. You can layer the other banks over the top as well and assign them in the same way. So you're not losing all of the software effects functionality, but you're not losing anything by doing this. Like, this is just an intuitive, simple way of working, and I like it. I'm glad it does what it says it does without any fuss. And for me, that's a very good thing. The other thing you can do, if we go into stems mode, we do get, this was on the Flex 10, I think was the first time we saw this with Rekordbox. You do have stems effects. So I can choose, I'm just going to have the vocal. Now you can hear we've just got the effects on the vocal. So that's very cool. So we can just assign the effects to whatever stem we want. So let's assign the flanger now just to the vocal. Or let's assign it to the drums. So now we've just got flanger on the drums. That's cool, right? That is definitely cool. And that is something that Serato DJ Pro cannot do. So yeah, you can assign to any of the three stems those effects. I like that a lot. Now we move up to the groove circuit. All right, this is, yeah, it's, on the one hand, I love this. I think it's great. On the other hand, it's a little bit hit and miss with the execution. Let me show you, right? So as it stands, I've got the default first bank of 4 drum loops in there. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to choose single mode, okay? And I've hit that and it's now replaced the drums on this. You can see the drums have disappeared from the stems mode with another drum loop. Undo it and they come back. Got a gain adjustment for them there. And then over here we've got drum roll, which as you would expect, rolls the drums. And then we can release. Which just kind of kills the drums that way. Right, so it's cool. We can kill the regular drums. So if we go back in the track, to stems mode, so it will kill the drums, which is, it's cool. Like, we've got and we can select the effect that we have for that as well. So I'm going to choose echo instead. Let's go. So I'm bopping my head here, right? This is dope, right? It is dope. The issue is, what makes it somewhat less than practical a lot of the time, if your beat grids aren't dead on, there's no way to like nudge it into place or whatever. There's just no way to do it. So if your grids are not perfect on your tracks, it's not gonna work right. And that's the one thing with it. Like, if you're not replacing the drums, you can roll the regular drums. And it is cool. And you can do multi-mode. So switch to multi-mode. And then it doesn't replace the drums, it just lets you add on multiple drums. And you can hear like this grid is pretty much correct on this track, so I'm able to use this and it's working well. But if your grid is even slightly off, it becomes a problem because there's nothing you can do to fix it on the fly. You can't nudge it back and forth and sync it up manually. It's there or it's not. And there's no way to really tell until you bring it in. The good thing is you can hear them in the queue. So if I was queuing that up ahead of time, I wanted to check if the drum loops were going to fit, they would fit or not. You know, I can know that before I bring the track in. But yeah, it's just, I would love a little nudge button or something just to nudge it back and forth slightly. As it stands, it's just synced up, but it does work. When it works beautifully and it's really, really fun. We've got multiple banks as well, so we can choose bank B. You can load up packs and you can drag loops to it as well, so I could get some loops from like Loop Masters or something and I could throw them in there, some drum breaks, and you can even throw whole tracks in there. It's basically like the sampler that's already in Rekordbox, it's attached to the deck. So there is some potential there really is a lot of potential for it, but as I say, it just relies on those grids on your tracks being perfect, and you know, none of us are perfect when it comes to all of our tracks and our grids. So it's just something to bear in mind. The other cool thing it can do is capture. So we can hit the capture button. Actually, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go back. Let's go back to where we've got some drums, right? So let's capture some drums. Now I'm going to play that. And this is the problem, the capture doesn't really work that well on the fly. It works nicely when you're paused, and I think it's one of those things you probably want to do it ahead of time. So I put it into capture mode now, and I'm going to hit that. Now, if I play it back, let's go into single mode. And we can change the length of it as well. We can halve or double the length of the capture. But it's still a little bit off there. So that one's perfect. But that one I captured isn't quite perfect. So I think there's a little bit of work to do with that. I would say it's probably better to use loops that you've put into the software, you've analyzed, and then you drag them into those drum kits effectively, that bank, you know, the different banks of kits. And so you've got drums in there already ready to use. Like the default ones are fine actually, they're quite fun, and they've got multiple packs. I can open up another pack here. Let's do that. Let's open up one more pack. Let's do the hip hop and reggae kit. There you go. Let's load that one up. We're on bank A. It just doesn't always quite sit right, and it's just one of those things where, as I say, the execution slightly off from what I'd want it to be, but there is some real creative potential there. And I would probably want to, load in, I'd probably want to head to Loop Masters, download some sample packs and load in some loops. You know, like hi-hat patterns and stuff like that, and throw those into those banks, make sure they're gridded properly, make sure they're going to sync properly, and then use it like, it's like a drum synth over the top, effectively. Just a way of playing drum loops, re-drumming tracks on the fly, and I do really like it. And I like the fact that you can do the drum roll. So overall, I'm more of a fan of the Serato implementation of this section of the device, but there is creative potential here. It is fun to use when it works perfectly. The only other thing I'm going to mention quickly is the joystick element of this knob up here. It does work. It sends you top to bottom of a list in Rekordbox. Otherwise it works the same, left, right. You can rotate it as well, load buttons there, etc. All of that works in much the same way. Tag track instead of preview, obviously, because you've got tag list in Rekordbox. So yeah, as a Rekordbox controller, just really as successful as it is with Serato DJ Pro. I've got no beef with any of it. The groove circuit, maybe a few tweaks, maybe use it in certain ways and you'll get some great results. But overall, yeah, I don't think Rekordbox users will be disappointed with this at all. A few months ago, I was approached at an event by a young up-and-coming local DJ. He's a Serato and sometimes Rekordbox user who is just starting to get paying gigs. And he asked me if I thought the Flex 6 GT would be a good upgrade from his entry-level controller. I told him that, sadly, I felt he ought to save up for a bit longer and get a Flex 10 instead, as he would reach the limits of the Flex 6 pretty quickly. But if he was to ask me that same question about the Groove 6 today, my answer would be completely different. Don't get me wrong, this is still a mid-range controller. There are plenty of good reasons to spend the extra on something like a Flex 10 or a Rev 5 if you need the functionality that those provide. But the Groove 6 has those crucial balanced outputs, and it is far more intuitive to use and works much more like club standard kit than the Flex 6 by a mile. So I would be happy to recommend it to that young DJ and others like him. In the comments, let us know your thoughts on the Groove 6, and I'd love to hear from you Rekordbox users. Do you agree with my thoughts on the current state of the software, and what areas would you like them to focus on the most? Thanks for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you've turned on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.